for joining the Startup Club Health Tech Investment Conference. My name is Batu, and I'll be the host today. I would like to, say a few words about the Startup Club before introducing today's format. As a Startup Club, we organize industry-specific pitch nights and investment conferences to connect entrepreneurs with investors. We've been doing this more than 4 years now, and we are proud to be of assistance of many startups in supporting them in their journey. Today, we have 8 health tech startups. Each of them will do 6-minute pitch, and right after the pitches, there will be 7 minutes discussion and Q&A session with the advisory panel members. All of the companies are currently seeking, and we got companies focusing on different fields, such as remote disease management for glaucoma patients, blood glucose monitoring, dental treatment marketplace, health data usage, ortho-prosthetics, and so on. So we hope and believe you will enjoy discovering these innovative companies. And as mentioned, we have 4 advisory panel members who will lead the discussions from reputable investment firms. I will ask them to introduce themselves, but before I will thank all the judges to be here with us today. Your contribution is super important for us, and thanks so much for that. Masashi Kiyomine, could you please introduce yourself? Are you there?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Masashi. I'm the founder / managing partner at Kiko Ventures, which is an early stage focused healthcare venture capital based in the US. We typically invest in companies that are in pre-seed to Series A stage. The checks we write are anywhere between $100K to $1 million for the first round, and we aspire to be, and I guess we are a value-adding investor, meaning we have we often take a kind of board seat, observer seat. Also have a community of advisors who actively participate in our portfolio companies. And then also we have programs to help our portfolio companies scale globally. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Masashi. And Yara, could you please introduce yourself as well?
Hi everyone, I'm Yara. I'm a biomedical scientist by training. I then specialised in cardiovascular medicine at the Agora Lab in Oxford before moving into venture, where I largely worked with university spin-outs for the first part of my career before moving on to Mass Mutual Ventures late last year. So Mass Mutual Ventures is a multi-stage global venture capital firm. We have a single LP structure, which is Mass Mutual, the life insurance company in the States, but we're not strategic. We have offices in Boston, London, and Singapore, and the London office is where I'm based. We work alongside the Singapore team, and we cover Europe and APAC. As far as sectors, we do digital health, which is where my focus is, as well as fintech, enterprise SaaS, as well as cybersecurity. We say Series A is usually our sweet spot. We've done a bit of seed and some Series B, but A is like where we like to hone in on. And our ticket sizes vary from 1 to 10 million, really just depends on your staging.
Great, thanks so much, Yara. Dominic Henderson, could you please introduce yourself as well? Dominic, can you hear me? I guess you're muted, or I don't know, or your microphone is not working. I can't hear you. Okay, let's pass to Stefan Halsbergen, then we will get back to Dominic.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's great. Yeah, we are an investor in the Eindhoven region. So we do a lot of medical technology and biotech, of course, with also a focus on digital health, high tech, and climate tech. We invest in an early stage phase and try to have not more than 5 million in the total lifespan of companies. My personal specialism is on surgical robotics, and we have 5 surgical robotics already in our portfolio. and some biotech. Our portfolio is 42 companies wide.
Great. Thanks, Stefan. Thank you for being with us today. Dominic, should we try one more time to see if your mic is working now? I guess, okay, Dominic just to be reconnected. All right, then let's start with the first page, and I'm sure Dominic will be back soon and introduce himself. The first page, the first company is Implandata Ophthalmic Products. Max, hi, hello. Feel free to share your screen and start presentation.
Can you
Max,
hear me?
are there? Yes, we do.
So it's deactivated, it doesn't allow me to
No,
share.
okay, okay.
Now it's working, now it's working, perfect. Okay, great. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. All right, yeah, my name is Max Ostermeier. I'm the CEO and founder of Implandata. We are a German-based ophthalmic digital health company, and we are going to change the management of glaucoma patients. So there's some background noise here.
Okay. I will.
So let me briefly talk about the disease we are addressing. Glaucoma is a chronic eye disease, age-related, and it's a leading reason for patients or for people losing eyesight. And it's really causing permanent loss of eyesight if not controlled well. As said, it's an age-related disease. Therefore, we will see a high number of patients even in the future. And it's all about increased eye pressure. Increased eye pressure is causing damages to the optic nerve, which over time leads to loss of eyesight in patients. The issue is that disease monitoring hasn't changed for the last 70 years. Glaucoma is a 24/7 disease, but today therapy effectiveness and disease status is only checked a few times a year, usually or mainly in the office visits. There is no way right now for home monitoring of the disease. And usually a patient shows up only 2 to 4 times a year. This means that in many cases, an uncontrolled glaucoma or ineffective therapies are detected too late, which is causing additional loss of eyesight in patients. Another big issue is, as I said, there is no way of self-monitoring today. And that's also the reason why many patients show bad adherence to therapies very often. So to overcome this problem, we have developed the IMID system, which is a combination of tiny implantable microsensors, which are today either placed in combination with glaucoma surgery or in combination with cataract surgery. In the next step, it will be also injected in an in-office procedure. And so these sensors are safely placed inside the patient's eye and telemetrically powered by RFID. So patients really don't feel and sense the sensor, and as I said, it does not do any harm to the patient. It only measures when it's measuring, when the measurement is actuated from the outside. So you can do on demand with that handheld, but we can also do fully automated measurements. So for example, you can also obtain measurements during the night. So it's really like a Holter monitor for the eye. And from that handheld device, the data goes straight into a web-based database where all the patient data is collected and presented to the eye doctor. And then the eye doctor would be able to early on identify, okay, there is a problem, I have to further escalate therapy. The other big benefit is we are empowering patient by self-monitoring. So they have a smartphone app by which they can really see what's going on. What is my pressure? Is my therapy really working for me? And that's motivating patients to show much better adherence than today. So the product is CE marked. We are CE marked under the new MDR. And so basically we are ready for commercialization in Europe. We also have obtained FDA breakthrough device designation. Still, we have to do our studies for obtaining approval, but with breakthrough device designations, it has 2 advantages. It's an expedited path to approval by the FDA, and also the reimbursement opportunities are way better. So just to mention, since the start of the FDA breakthrough device program 10 years ago, there have been only 17 ophthalmic devices having obtained breakthrough, and ours is one of them. The business model is quite attractive because we have, on the one hand, one-time revenues for the eye doctors as well as for us as a company for setting up the system. But since there will be recurring revenues on a monthly basis for providing the remote patient monitoring services. So it means there are already CPT codes in place which can be used. Means an eye doctor can bill up to $200 a month per patient for providing these services. And at the end, you know, our sensors are working for a very long time. We have now in vivo data for 10 years, so basically they can really also work longer, and that's really important because, as I said, chronic glaucoma is a chronic disease. The opportunity is quite large, and is further growing. If you only look at the US and Europe, we believe that we can reach a serviceable obtainable market of at least $500 million. So go-to-market is we will focus on the countries where we can start with CE mark, and once we have FDA, we also continue with the US. And our customers are eye clinics, eye centers prescribing our systems to their patients. And here we are working with KOLs and early adopting centers. In key countries like Germany, like the US, we will go direct. In other countries, we will work with distribution partners. The competitive landscape looks kind of crowded, but I think there is no solution which is optimal right now, and this solution which is optimal can only be right now provided by Implandata when it comes to user friendliness, to the ability to really introduce remote patient management, and also especially when it comes to newer technology like contact lens sensors, optical sensors, other implantable pressure sensors. They are very early and not validated yet, so we have a couple of years advantage against these competing companies. We will start first revenues next year, and once we have FDA approval in 2026, 2027, of course, we will expect to jump into sales. And we are right now raising a 10 million equity round. So far, we have already raised 21 million. The last post money was 29, and we've said use of these proceeds will be for commercial launch in Europe and get going with the FDA. We have a very experienced team. Stefan and myself are the two founders. We have already successfully exited 3 companies which we have previously started. We have people from the industry and also a very seasoned board of directors with people from the industry, from the investment world, and as well from the ophthalmic users. Means Professor Binder, for example, is one of the leading glaucoma researchers and clinicians in the world. So in summary, we are addressing a growing market and addressing a huge unmet need. Home monitoring is really needed for better glaucoma care. We have accomplished important critical milestones like CE marking and breakthrough device designation, so the technology is rock solid and stable. We have a strong team, very attractive business model with recurring revenues, and very strong, protected by IP. And we have also further products in our pipeline, including also glaucoma therapy. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Max. Great presentation. Let's start with Dominic, since we don't, he wasn't able to, introduce himself as well. So Dominic, why don't you introduce yourself first and then make your comment or ask your question?
Sure. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Oh, fantastic. Dominic Henderson. I'm with HSBC Innovation Banking. This is the former Silicon Valley Bank UK. From the United States. Some people may be familiar with some of my past. I was the former global head of G4A. So worked for Bayer for about 9 years. I was based in Berlin, where we did investments and partnerships for Bayer and to support the global ecosystem for G4A. But enough about me. Max, thank you for the presentation. Quite an interesting product. As you know, Bayer has quite the interest in ophthalmology, and actually spent a lot of time working on one of their very large drug launches for one of their key products. I'm a little bit curious. I think maybe 2 things weren't quite clear to me. I'm curious a little bit if you can double click on your go-to-market. Particularly, it seems like you've identified Europe as your primary go-to-market. Then, of course, I imagine you have US in focus. And then I did also spend some time to look at your video online. So I'm a little bit curious if you have any feedback around how you actually implant the device, and how do you train people to do that?
Yeah, actually, the implantation procedure is quite simple. The sensor is placed beneath the sclera, and it can be placed either in combination with cataract surgery or in combination with glaucoma surgery. So from a surgical point of view, it's very straightforward. eye surgeons are very skilled surgeons because they place very small devices like intraocular lenses millions of times inside the ear. And so the placement of our sensor is not so much different. So it's very easy to be done by eye surgeons. And right now, I said it's done either in combination with glaucoma surgery or in combination with cataract surgery. So we are piggybacking. In the next step, we are also approaching standalone injection, like an intravitreal injection. So sensors are very small, and I said not really felt by the patients at all. But I said it's very simple and straightforward. It only adds maybe to a cataract or glaucoma surgery 1 minute to place our sensor.
Would that also set a new standard of care? Like, would you impact the guidelines for that with that procedure?
Yeah, I think, of course, when it comes to the implantation, of course, there are our own guidelines how to do that in combination with cataract or glaucoma, but also in a standalone. But I said for a skilled eye surgeon, that's not a big deal at all.
Yeah, thank you, Dominic. Thank you for the answer, Max. Masashi, what do you think? Do you have any comments or question?
Yes, well, thank you, Max, for the presentation. I think glaucoma and monitoring pressure is, a challenge that a lot of companies have been trying to solve. And I know you had a page on a competitive landscape, but can you kind of elaborate on that? There are a lot of companies that are trying to solve this problem with different approaches.
Yeah.
And how can you be the winner versus the others?
Yes. If you look at the landscapes, there is, of course, this current standard of care, which is around now for 70 years, which is in-office tonometry, which, as I said, is today's standard of care. And that does not allow at all patient self-measurements. For that reason, iCare, a Finnish company, developed a product for home tonometry, which is called iCare Home. But here, it has the same weaknesses like in office tonometry when it comes to accuracy, because it's an indirect way measuring the pressure through the cornea. But there's an additional problem because it really strongly depends on a patient's ability to perform such a measurement. And we are talking about elderly patients, most of them already with visual impairments. Some have other diseases, kind of shaking tremor and things. So it really depends very strongly. And then, in addition, it only allows measurements during the day, but not during the night. It's better than what's done today, but it's not optimal. There have been contact lenses around for quite some while, which unfortunately have all failed because there is a strong human factor. Patients have to use these contact lenses. Most of the glaucoma patients have very sensitive eye ocular surface diseases, so would not tolerate such a 24-hour contact lens, and it would be only for 24 hours. But the biggest failure was that it was never possible to validate that the measurements obtained by a contact lens sensor can be correlated to the real intraocular pressure. And that didn't provide any mercury measurements, which eye doctors are used to. There are optical sensors and similar sensors like ours, really having a sensor inside the eye, but they are still early. They are still working on the concept, not having any animal or any human data so far. And to obtain FDA or CE marking or FDA approval, you have to do long-term studies. And so I think there is some promise there, but I think the problem is, that they are still very early and still have a long way to go. And I think we have now a long history with 10-year in vivo data with previous designs. And when it comes to accuracy and precision, we have the most optimal solution here. That has been shown in studies, of course.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. One more question. Looks like you gotten CE mark a few years ago. What's been have you tried to commercialize this in Europe, or
actually we have CE mark?
By the way, Max, I just need very short answer for that, maybe just
sure.
2 sentences.
Yeah. We are CE marked according to MDR since last year. We had earlier CE marking, but we did some post-market surveillance and not really commercialization, just to gather more data and to show that the device is also safe long-term.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much, Max. Great
All right, thank
presentation.
you. Thanks.
Well explained. Thank you. Let's move to the next page, and the next company is BOYDSense. Ben Delphi, CEO of the company, will do the presentation, and his colleague will be supporting him in the Q&A session. Ben, feel free to share your screen and start the presentation.
Thank you. Give me 1 second, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you all see the presentation?
Yes.
Yep, it's possible to see it. Good. Before I start, allow me to breathe one more time. And you know that human beings are breathing up to 22,000 times per day. And why we are not using the breath to analyze and monitor chronic conditions. And that's exactly what we do at BOYDSense with our first product, which we call LESI. We are supported by the EIC or ISMER as part of the Horizon 2020 project, and we lately have been awarded by the Diabetes Center in Bern, one of the leading diabetes technology accelerator. What we are doing is our first application is all around glucose monitoring in diabetes, and I'm sure you have heard that more than 500 million people are suffering from diabetes today. This number will grow to up to 1.3 billion up to 2050. And people with diabetes, they need to measure one key metric, which is the glucose level, which can be done in 2 different ways. So one is a finger prick. I'm sure you have seen that one. And the other one is with a continuous glucose monitoring device. And all these technologies are highly invasive, painful. There's a lot of complexity and hassle to use them with a lot of supply, and they're quite expensive, especially CGM is 7 to 8 times more expensive than finger prick today. So what we are doing is we put the power of the dog's nose into a medical device, and our device is very simple to use. You just have to blow into our device. It's pain-free, very simple, very easy, and very cost effective. And you might wonder what we do in more detail, and you might see our prototype here in my hands. That one we just used for a clinical trial, and we'll come more into details to that one. But what we measure is volatile organic compounds through exhaled breath. And volatile organic compounds are very small molecules, and we measure the type and the concentration of the volatile organic compounds. And we have identified in a first clinical trial a whole bunch that shows a very strong correlation to glucose. And then we have built our gas sensor array, which is a metal oxide sensor technology towards this volatile organic compounds. And then we are able, with our AI, to show a glucose reading. And we are supported by 8 different patent families and have a very strong IP asset. Talking about clinical trials, I think that the question that usually comes is, does it work? Have you done clinical trials? And we are very proud that we just finalized the clinical trial with 130 type 2 patients in the CHU Toulouse in France. And the first 100 patients we used to train and improve our algorithm. And then we have used the last 30 patients totally independent to prove and show the performance. And there are different ways of showing a performance. We have compared our technology against IV and professional blood glucose monitors. And one way to do it is what is called a Park Error Grid analysis. And you see that almost 100% of our results are in what we call the right zone. MARD is another way of showing it with some limitations for breast, but we see a good performance there. But we also see, and I think it's fair to say, that we need to improve our algorithm further. We need to have more clinical data for that one. And there are a few questions that we can't answer right now. So further clinical trials are coming. The device performance shows that we are very reliable. We had only 1 single test missing with the device. And as you can imagine, we are clearly covering unmet needs of patients with diabetes. So the patient acceptance is extremely high. That's not really a surprise if you know the category. The business model we are looking for is device sales to leading distributors. That could be companies like Roche, Leiscan, Ascensia, just to name a few. We remain the legal manufacturer as a responsibility, and will do further R&D work, especially when it comes to other disease beyond diabetes. And I've managed these kind of partnerships already. I spent roughly 20 years in the industry, so it's about quite common business model, and I sit in on the other side of the table to manage it. The market size, there's two ways to look at it. One is the blood glucose monitoring market, which is a shrinking market today because CGM is picking up. And nevertheless, we believe we can get a significant market share there. Plus, there will be new market models coming. Patient remote monitoring is one, and there's always an out-of-pocket market where we believe we can play a significant role. Looking towards the competition, we are the first breast glucose monitor in the market, and we will be a breakthrough in the non-invasive space. Depending on how you define this market, we could have further discussions here on how we see that. We are supported by 33 letters of intent from companies like Sanofi, Air Liquide, from leading insurances, patient organizations. That is only possible with a very strong and experienced team. So our team has an average 25 years of experience in the industry, in the commercialization of devices, volatile organic compounds, breast analysis, device development, and mass volume production. And we currently have 8 FTEs. Looking towards our milestones, so far we got 10 million invests. We have been in the EIC program, so we got a 2.5 million non-dilutive grant. We are in Series A right now with 2 due diligences ongoing, one from a strategic lead investor and one from the EIC/European Innovation Bank, who will also contribute with up to 7.5 million in this round. And we plan to launch our product somewhere in 2026. And going into more details, I just mentioned it to you. We have a few million secured. We are looking for additional 2 to 3 million in this round, which we would primarily use for further clinical trials, for hardware development, and the system validation. And diabetes is really just the start for us. There's much more you can do with breast, and there's a lot of literature around this topic. So we are looking already into sepsis. We are looking into NASH and NAFLD, which are also 2 big indications. And hopefully we will transform healthcare in its core forever with being one of the first breast platforms. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks so much for the great pitch, Ben. Yara, what did you think?
Thanks very much for the presentation, Ben. I have just one main question. To what extent, I suppose, is the test impacted by the volume of breath sort of going into the device? And equally, what other parameters need to be controlled? I mean, does diet also impact that? And but also conscious of the fact that diabetes itself is quite complicated and heterogeneous in its manifestation. So it's sort of that patient-to-patient variability.
Bruno, can I ask you to answer to this question? Bruno is our CTO and founder of the company.
Hello, everybody. Very nice to speak to you today. So back to your question, we have a flow meter inside our device, and this flow meter is capable to make sure that we select the right portion of breath. What do I mean by right portion of breath? I mean the VOC, volatile organic compounds that we analyze, are mostly present in the tidal part of the breath. So if, for instance, I start to expire the hair like this, at the beginning, it's a lot of CO2, oxygen, nitrogen, and not so interesting because there is a lot of molecular recombination. Mm-hmm. But when I come to the end of the expired breath, what we call tidal part, then it's much more interesting because there is less recombination and a better concentration of volatile organic compound. So we have flow sensor who take care for this. As I said already, we have a flow sensor that makes sure that we take only the tidal part of the breath. And also we combine this with 3 other sensors, which is temperature, pressure, humidity, so that we can adapt to all kinds of configuration. And not only on Earth, but also when you are in a plane, you know, it has to work in a flight at 10,000 meters. So all these are managed by the sensor, which are integrated in our device.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Yara. Stefan, do you have any comments?
Yeah, thanks very much. Nice platform potential, Ben. Great to hear this pitch, and I think you have a lot of questions already answered in your slides, so that's very good. Can you elaborate a little bit on the go-to-market strategy, reimbursement, and completeness of the team with regards to that go-to-market strategy? And what I thought I heard was 8 million is already committed by the current relevant health tech investors, isn't it?
Ben, it seems that you are muted.
Yeah, now you can unmute yourself now, Ben. Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself now, Ben. You are muted. No, you cannot. Let me try. Okay, sorry about that. How about now?
Oh,
Okay.
sorry for that. No, I think you can hear me. Sorry, I was unable to unmute myself. So to your question, that was a question on the business model, right? So we are really looking towards device sales to these leading distribution partners. I'm working since 20 years in the diabetes industry myself, so my phone is full of addresses of companies like Lyscan, Ascensia, Roche, just to name a few. So we have a strong network. I started talking with them already, and they have an interest, but we need to progress a bit more to enter into this distribution and promotion agreements, which is for us a way to go into diabetes, right? I'm not saying that that is a common business model we will use for sepsis, for example, or for NASH and others. So I think we will distinguish this very carefully depending on which indication we talk. We are also considering to do 1 or 2 markets ourselves, and might even play with a slightly different intended use to get earlier to market. So that's still not finalized yet, but there are plenty of options also to go towards screening and earlier detection of disease. To your question of market access and reimbursement, it's indeed a very interesting question, and I've initiated a project here to better understand what the potential pathway could be for us. I think device sales will always work because we will show lower cost, especially compared to CGM, but also against BGM, against blood glucose monitoring. So there's an economic benefit for the payers in these countries. Remote patient monitoring is an interesting market for us in US, and we believe that will come into further countries as well. And there are also some other ways for us to look into this reimbursement. For example, linking it with a digital health software, an early intervention platform, coaching platform, and so on. So there, I'm sure you have heard that there's a law like PECAN or DIGA, which is not very much liked by most investors from what I know, but also these markets are changing and there's a lot of transformation towards this one. To your last question, so far we have committed between 2 and 4 million in that round, including the EIB. But the EIB will give in total up to 7.5 million or 7.5 million, which means we don't need to ask for the full 7.5 million in that round. They pretty much do a 50% matching of what we get, and it's silent, so they don't have board seats. They just provide this money.
Thanks so much, Ben. Thanks so much, Bruno. Great presentation. Time's up now, and we move to the next page. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And the next company is EndoShunt Medical. Tyler Zenon, CEO and co-founder of the company, will do the presentation. Tyler, feel free to share your screen and go ahead with the presentation. Tyler, now we can see this presentation, but we cannot hear you. I don't know if you're speaking already.
Is my audio coming through okay?
Yes, yes.
All right, well, first off, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. My name is Tyler, and I'm the CEO of EndoShunt. And we're a Class 2 medical device company that's really setting out to end unnecessary death by giving trauma surgeons the gift of time so that they can give trauma patients the gift of life. Our organization was founded to solve a problem that's become far too common in the medical world today. Our sad reality is the time to death from abdominal hemorrhage or bleeding is often shorter than the time it takes to actually access the sites of these injuries, leaving our healthcare professionals helpless and our patients hopeless. Last year alone, deaths from uncontrolled abdominal bleeding outweighed deaths from COVID-19 by 30%. What's more, if we pretend that we're those lucky enough to survive, 3 out of every 5 of us will suffer from life-altering complications and nearly a year's worth of painful recovery due to the secondary trauma of current treatment options. In our customer discovery, we've spoken with over 500 healthcare professionals. And in all of these conversations, this problem has rung true. Our industry needs a solution, and EndoShunt is that solution. We empower trauma surgeons with the ability to gain rapid, targeted control over abdominal hemorrhage. Our device is inserted into the femoral artery or vein and traced to the aorta or IVC, where it could be deployed to occlude blood flow from the inside. Our device is size adjustable, so that as we learn more, our patient's blood can continue to flow to where it should, while preventing it from flowing out of where it shouldn't. Once the injury has been fixed, EndoShunt is completely removable from its same point of entry. We've demonstrated effective hemorrhage control in both in vivo and simulation models. In as little as 30 seconds, our surgeons were able to gain control over these hemorrhages and maintain that control over the life of our experiment, meaning that in the future, they could rapidly stop bleeding and control that bleeding as they work to save these patients' lives. There are other devices or techniques that are used to address abdominal hemorrhage, but none of these were designed for this purpose, and because of that, all of them fall short. Packing is extremely invasive and can impede the effectiveness of surgery. Cross-clamping and balloon occlusion go upstream of your site of injury and cut off blood flow to the rest of your body, which could lead to complications as serious as amputation or organ failure. EndoShunt truly is the only option that gives our surgeons the technique, the tools, and the time that they need to save patients' lives and drive optimized outcomes. Through the cleverness of our intellectual patent lawyers, we've cornered the market of endovascular shunting. We've also gained protections on key device features that ensure our freedom to operate and our ability to capture market for years to come. We've leveraged industry-leading partners to build a robust quality system that's fit for who we are today and who we will be as we progress as an organization. What's more, we will leverage the same regulatory consultants who are responsible for gaining FDA clearance on our predicate device to help build our test plan and carry out our pre-510K meeting with the FDA later this year. Trauma is unfortunately on the rise. In America, it has risen by 23% in the last decade. We've gained exclusive access to the Trauma Quality Improvement Program dataset and have used this dataset to accurately define our target markets. Our beachhead of 366 million are really just cases in which trauma surgeons have 2 options: leverage EndoShunt or accept that their patient will likely bleed to death. From here, we'll expand to other abdominal indications of use, look to international markets, and other therapeutic areas such as OBGYN, oncology, and transplant surgery, all of whom expressed interest during our market analysis. By the end of this growth, EndoShunt is looking at roughly $60 billion market annually. Our team is a diverse group of experts who, through collaboration, will ensure our success. I joined EndoShunt in March of this very year, after a decade of cradle-to-grave medical device development experience between Medline and AbbVie. Our CTO, Michael, leads our engineering efforts and ensure that we hit the technical requirements necessary to be successful. Olivia helps guide our strategy, and our 2 trauma surgeon co-founders make sure that we are developing this device with the end users in mind so that we can be successful when we get to market. We've come a long way since our ideation in 2020. This very year, we completed our first in vivo testing model, proving effective hemorrhage control in both the aorta and the IVC of a pig. We also received numerous awards, including the Medical Innovation Award from Health Tech Arkansas. Through the rest of this year, we'll prepare for our pre-510K submission meeting, finalize our device, and move into testing for the FDA clearance of next year. We're looking for a $1.76 million investment via convertible notes. With this, we will gain FDA clearance. We'll establish and make more robust our market-ready supply chain, and will produce and prepare for our clinical pilot studies at 5 healthcare facilities that we already have handshake agreements with. As early investors, you can expect a 20% discount at our Series A valuation, which is predicted to be north of $40 million based on current comps. As we commercialize, we expect a break-even point as early as our 27th month, and a profit by the end of our 5th year of nearly $130 million. EndoShunt truly is the gift of time for trauma surgeons. And by helping us get this device to market, you can give the gift of life to these trauma patients. Please join us.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Tyler. Masashi, would you like to start with your comments? What do you think?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Curious, what are the comps you use to get the valuation you said, the $40 million?
Absolutely. So we were looking at other surgical devices, namely Primetime Medical, which is our intended predicate. And based on their values, we nearly have double the indications of use compared to them with our ability to leverage the IVC.
Got it. Okay.
And I'm happy to share further.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other question I had was about the pricing. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So we're looking at an average sales price at $6,000, and that gives us about an 84% gross margin, which is right on par with other medical devices in our field.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Masashi. And Dominic, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Tyler. Really solid pitch. I mean, I could ask a bunch of questions, and I think maybe I will ask a concrete question and then maybe an esoteric question, if I may. You mentioned partners and how important partners are. Maybe you can double click a little bit on that partners bucket. I did notice that you highlighted George Washington University and one of the surgeons there having, from DCL into GW. I'm guessing, from even a data point like that, you have some really solid partners really connected with you. And then my esoteric question, I just couldn't help but wondering, why does this not already exist? Like, are clamps really that important? Have we really been using clamps for like 100 years?
So I'm actually joined by my two trauma surgeon co-founders, Mireya, Jeremy. I'm not sure if you want to maybe talk about the partnerships you've built and the importance of our device.
Hey, yeah, I'm Dr. Jeremy Levin. So to answer your first question, I am a GW med school and residency alum, which is our connection there. And the short answer is yes, we've been using clamps for like 100 years. And the reality is that the trauma community is slow to the game with innovations in technology, specifically minimally invasive and endovascular. And we have farmed a lot of that out to other specialties. But now there's a burgeoning revolution within the field where trauma surgeons are migrating back towards regaining those minimally invasive endovascular skills for hemorrhage control. The best example is Reboa, which is currently on the market. But it effectively functions as a clamp, just an internal one. And so it suffers all the complications of an internal clamp. And that's where we came in. And I think the reason why we're first to the game is that trauma surgeons have just been happy with kind of what we've been doing. And now that we're in a new era where we're trying to change things, we just were first to the game with this kind of revolutionary idea.
Awesome.
And we're happy to share some of our customer discovery comments on how much these individuals would love this device if it was available already today.
Yeah, I mean, the outcomes data that you can have around this is really going to tell the story. And you can always assign an actual value to that, whether it's lives or actual dollars, right? It's impressive. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dominic. Yara, do you have any comment?
Oh, there you go. Sorry, I couldn't unmute from it. Thank you so much for the presentation, Tyler. Really appreciate it. I wonder if you could speak to the material that's being used for the stent. There's various different sort of iterations that I've come across recently, and every single person uses, I suppose, various different combinations. I suppose what makes yours unique to really allow that sort of flow and seal, if you will?
Absolutely. So our device uses a nitinol frame base with a Teflon coating. And so realistically, what that gives us is we have two different frames that kind of put your distal and your proximal pinpoints in. From there, the coating itself provides, for lack of a scientific description, so forgive me, Jeremy and Milad, a tunnel on the inside of your blood vessel. And so that you could block it from flowing out of where the leak is, but still to the rest of the body. And so most of the devices, as Jeremy was alluding to, are a stop gate. We are not. We're just making sure it goes to where it should be.
Yes, or you can unmute yourself now.
Thank you.
Any follow-up question?
If I may, yes, in terms of porosity, I suppose, what level, how porous is the device?
I could pull up the actual material specs for you, but what I can say is in the biological system, after leaving it in for 30 minutes in both the aorta and the IVC, we saw no leakage.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Yara. Stefan, any questions?
Yeah, so the stent is in for 30 minutes, you say. Is that right?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
The stent is in the patient for 30 minutes max, you say, isn't it?
In our last in vivo model, that's the time point we were testing at.
Okay, and if 510Ks, of course, that strategy is wonderful, but sometimes you see turbulence in blood flow caused by stents leading to thrombosis, for example. Do you see any risks of that, or data indicating that it's not? And if so, if you see any risk, could you elaborate a little on the patient follow-up during the clinical studies?
Absolutely. So sorry, I was really struggling to hear you, but I think I have the gist of it. So our intended package of FDA clearance will test up to 90 minutes. And so with that, we will gain clearance before our clinical trials, and we'll work with those 5 partner sites to build clinical evidence on both optimized outcomes and efficiencies of our product throughout that year. Jeremy, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, the comment on the thrombosis. I think, the coating itself is relatively non-thrombogenic, which is why it's already used in existing stents that are on the market for vascular surgery. But the 2 protective factors against thrombosis, one is the high flow nature of the vessels. The aortic is a high flow, IVC is a high flow, and the time span. We're not going to have it within the vessel for that long because we're trying to get the patient off the table as quickly as we can after we repair the vessel. So the risk of thrombosis is mitigated, one, just by the material that the shunt is made of, and then the time frame in which we have it in. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeremy and Tyler. That was amazing. Time's up now. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And the next company is Smylor. Stefan Pai, CEO and co-founder of the company, will do presentation, and with his co-founder actually Paddy. Stefan, feel free to share your screen and share presentation. Stefan, do you hear me? Okay. I can now see the screen, but we don't hear you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I'm Stephen Pai. I'm the CEO and CTO of Smylor. I suppose my unique value as an individual to this project is that I've got this sort of combination of marketing, commercial acumen, as well as a deep technical understanding of modern technology, including AI. So that's why I've got the role of CEO and CTO. So I'm going to present to you quickly the solution that we've come to against a problem that we've been seeing for a while. We see that most dentist practices are not adopting a modern online approach to booking, chat, or any engagement. They're still working with paper and phone, and this is just not sustainable going forward. They're under big pressure from the individual consumers that want that Hollywood smile. We've put together a treatment marketplace, a bit like Airbnb and Booking.com, that allows them to assess different treatment options, review, chat, book dentists online, which basically allows the dentist to market their practice more effectively. So how does it work? It's very simple. This is the patient comes in on the marketplace platform. They select their type of treatment. And then the dentist has a patient relationship management CRM type system that we've built that allows them to chat with the patient through a platform and accept online bookings. So why should you invest in Smylor? Well, we took this proposition to an IT sector analyst for a large Swiss investment bank, they said that we didn't have enough, we weren't asking for enough money for it to be interesting for them. But the IT sector analysis benchmarked us against, I think, Cry and Dr. Lib, and said that we potentially, we are disruptive for this industry. So, you know, if we look at this situation today in the marketplaces, of course, the tech hits in Q4 a big drop. We've had about 270K investments so far, and we're really a combination of marketplace, health tech, and SaaS combined. In terms of the addressable market, we're looking at something in a region of 4.49 billion euros across the Swiss, German, French, Italian, and UK markets that we're targeting initially. We estimate, based upon research, 277 million appointments in an industry that's seeing cosmetics dentistry grow by, depending on which report you look at, 6 to 13% CAGR. We did some research based upon some of the work that we've been doing over the last 2 years on the marketing side, and we discovered that across these same markets, Switzerland, Germany, France, Italy, and UK, 55% of the demand from Google is for cosmetic-based treatments, a 10.1 million treatment related searches per month on Google search today. So if we look at what we've done, we've managed to take a single dentist. You see the little fishing rod indication. This is represents an appointment. And basically what we've done is we've gone out to the market and said, okay, how do we get all of these patients that are looking for particular treatments? And we've done a sort of trawler approach. And what it's resulted in is 7 times to 9 times the amount of appointments than they would have got. We've benchmarked ourselves on a leading provider of a patient management system that has an online booking, and we outperformed it by 15% conversion rate. So how does it look in terms of our competition? Well, in relation to the closest competitors to us are probably companies like Doctify, Jameda, and Dr. Lib. Doctify is a UK company, and they operate in the sort of review area. Jameda has been doing reviews, but got bought by a company called Doc Planner, and they do sort of online booking as well. The biggest company to grow so far is Dr. Lib in this area, from what we can see, and their valuation's at 5.8 billion. They're predominantly on online booking. What's different about us is we focus on dental clinics, and we allow the patient to assess the clinic reviews. They can review treatments. They can even look at affordability of a treatment. And then they can chat online and then finally book online with the customer, with the dentist. This is the funnel management that needs to be done to capture this market. Our current valuation is 9.2, and we've had about 270K seed funding. So what's our growth prospects looking like? Well, we benchmarked on Dr. Lib's growth. We're looking at 11.5% market share. And what we can see is that sales revenues can go pretty rapidly up in the same way Dr. Lib did, as well as some other companies that we've looked at. And we're predicting an EBITDA of 29% in 2027. What's our deliverables so far this year? We've been working predominantly on working with a couple of dental groups and piloting and doing MVP stuff, which we're at the close of now, and we're in the process of actually launching this full on with marketing as of Q4, Q3 this year. Management team, there's myself, Paddy McGlinchey, who's been working in international software businesses for some years as a CFO. We have Dava Horvat, who's multilingual, capable individual, who's been in large corporates, worked in China, fluent in Italian, Spanish, pretty much English and German. Detlef Hulverscheidt, he's basically one of our advisors and helps us in the sort of consumer area. He's been working at companies like L'Oreal and proven as a bootstrap effectively on startup bootstraps. He's done a number of startups, and finally, most importantly, our leader, head of advisory, Dr. Cyrus Alamuti, who's a KOL in digital dentistry and actively working in Germany with companies like Straumann. He's part of the EDG group, European Dental Group. So, in summary,
thank you, Stefan. Actually, I have to interrupt you there. Time is up already, but I'm sure you can clarify more in the Q&A session. So, Stefan, would you like to start with your comment?
Yeah, thanks very much for your presentation. Well, a lot of investors look also for impact on care capacity, and you can see this is particularly interesting for commercial change of dental practices, I can imagine, mostly on cosmetics. But what impact does this tool have on the total available capacity in healthcare, where general dentists need these attractive treatments like bleaching for a nice profit in their practice? Can you elaborate on that?
Exactly. Well, sorry, could I understand the question? Could I just check the question? You're asking me, how does this help dentists that need to get into profitable treatments? Is that or maintain?
Yeah, because I can imagine that this solution you have, that it's very attractive also for investors, but not attractive for the complete dental practice market, I can imagine.
Oh, well, small dental practices are in a succession plan issue, which is many of them are run by older family dentists, older guys typically. They're moving out. The majority of the new dentists coming in are women, especially in the UK, taking over practices managed by groups on acquisition. So we're seeing a marketplace that is changing. The fact is most of these small providers don't have a way to market, and they don't have the capabilities to do the online chat or online booking that we offer them. We're charging a very pay-as-you-go rate. So for even the smaller practices, they can get visibility on our platform and focus on cosmetic treatments in a way that they couldn't do if they had to do it all themselves. Does that answer? In fact, the benchmark we worked with was a small single practice for 2 years, where we helped generate them between 10 and 20,000 visitors to their website per month.
Okay, great. And just one other question, it's about sustainable competitive advantage, because there's no patents or whatever, and there's actually a free entrance in this field. So can elaborate a little on this sustainability of the competitive advantage and how you see that in your go-to-market?
Okay, well, most of our competitors are focused on doctors. We're focused. Our strategy is to work with patient management systems and allow them to extend to be a patient with a PRM approach. We've already secured a contract with Solucio, which is in the top 3 with 27,000 dentist practitioners, along with a couple of other players. They want to extend their PMS to the outside world, and they know they can't do it themselves. In terms of Dr. Libs, penetration in the dentist market, it is not as good as the doctor's market, because they can't necessarily or easily integrate with the PMS systems. The PMS guys review them as a competitor. In terms of sustaining it further than that, beyond just the commercial side of things, we believe that once we have the brand name, that's why we're looking for investment, just like Airbnb, we will become the player that all the dentists go to for making their appointments happen and chatting with their customers, because we can do that by integrating with multiple PMS systems and by marketing to the patients online through the various channels like social media and Google search.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Yara, what do you think?
Thank you for the presentation, Stephen. My question was largely around differentiation, which you've already answered. So I'll just pivot my time to another panel member.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Yara. Dominic? How about you?
Yeah, I had a very similar, I think, reaction to the earlier comments, particularly around barrier to entry from competitors. You know, I think that's definitely a question. Also, I mean, one of the things I noticed, and maybe something to look at as a feedback, when I Google searched you earlier, I accidentally somehow Google offered me the store for Smylor.com, which it looks like there's some buggy things going on below the fold there. So maybe want to have your tech guys look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise, I mean, I think, you know, I don't know, I've always been surprised by Dr. Lip's success, especially because I lived in Berlin and we all know that they've raised a lot of money. And I mean, outside of being a scheduling system, I'm like, well, how did they do that? And I think, you know, having kind of lived that experience, it was interesting to see how even a multinational like Bayer, when it was time to actually give out COVID vaccines to employees, for example, they actually went through Doctolib. And as an American, I always had, or native English speaker, American English speaker, I always had problems with Doctolib because they never offered information in English. And it's hugely frustrating to have my German online translator, you know, while trying to find my medical conditions. So, I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out how do you kind of scale this, you know, throughout Europe and make it user-friendly, you know, maybe with different language options and maybe some other bells and whistles.
Well, we have a policy of two language, the local language and English. So nearly all of the platform is dual language. So in our German platform, they can switch between German and English. And that's the same with our potentially in our French platform as we roll it out. See, within London, it's going to be English. There's not much point. So that's the policy we've taken. So, and we built AI online chat into it, which you can switch languages as well. So you can talk to, we bring ChatGPT to answer questions the reception is struggling to answer in the dental treatment world. And you can do that in multilingual too. And essentially, just like Airbnb, we have the chat service would allow you to switch language and auto translate as you need.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much, Stefan. Actually, time is up now. Your presentation, and thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, let's move to the next speech. The next company is Calciscon. Vincent Linder, CEO of the company, will do the presentation with his colleague Elsa. Vincent, feel free to share your screen and go on with the presentation.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vincent Linder. I'm a serial entrepreneur and also the CEO of Calciscon, a life science company based in Switzerland. We're all too familiar with calcification, especially calcification in our arteries. This is a common root cause for cardiovascular event, which remain the leading cause of death worldwide. Calciscon is focusing on measuring and treating calcification. So in a nutshell, what Calciscon has developed is a discovery platform, which is composed of a number of blood tests. We have the T50 test, which is already CE marked, and also tests for calci protein particle, which I will discuss in more detail later. Together, these tests have been clinically validated in over 30,000 human subjects. And what we have learned, cohort after cohort, is that we are best in class for the measurement of inflammation, oxidative stress, which leads to calcification. And that process of inflammation to calcification is nothing less than the process of vascular aging, which is quite important for chronic kidney disease, but more importantly for cardiovascular disease as a whole. And globally speaking, it is also a very important driver of aging. Calciscon has an immediate revenue generation opportunity by selling the T50 test through a partner in kidney disease care delivery for the management of kidney disease patients. We're also developing long-term value in the development of pharmaceuticals. So what we've learned over the years is that any interventions that are capable of improving either the CPPs or the T50 are expected to reduce inflammation, as a result, slow down aging, and provide better treatment for chronic disease. The team is composed of multiple experts in the field. We have the founder of the company, who is an internationally recognized key opinion leader in calcification medicine, also the inventor of the T50 test. Professor Smith is the inventor of the first method to measure CPPs, with a full-blown product development team, strong board, and numerous external contributors in business, market access, and regulatory. So speaking in more details about the calciprotein particles, in our body, all of us have these circulating particles, which you can see an image of made by electron microscope. They're about 50 nanometer in diameter to 150. We found them in two classes, the type 1 and the type 2. The type 1, or the good one, is non-toxic and is part of the normal physiological process of moving around calcium and phosphate in our bodies. Spontaneously, after time, the CPP1 can evolve.
Oh, Vincent, I
Can
guess
you
you
hear
were
now?
muted for a
I've been
second.
muted
Yes.
for some reason.
Yeah, okay. Now we can hear you.
Okay, let me just go back to the slide now. Okay, so I was saying the CPP1 is a non-toxic one, can convert to the CPP2 type. And this is a toxic one, the one responsible for inflammation and leading to calcification. In a way, it's analogous to the cholesterol issue. We have good, bad cholesterol, great testing market, and good track record of blockbuster drug. Where the CPP come from? They come from food. When we eat food containing calcium and phosphate, through the guts come to the bloodstream and create CPPs. We also have CPP coming from the bone turnover. All the CPPs in our blood can become drivers of aging in the form of inflammation, oxidative stress, and calcification. And these drivers of aging becomes the root cause for the disease of aging. We hear most interested about cardiovascular disease and chronic kidney disease. Calciscon has multiple products in its pipeline. The most advanced product is the use of the T50 test as a primary treatment target to reduce cardiovascular event in end-stage kidney disease. We also have ongoing work in therapeutic drug development. We've already identified 2 promising leads to treat calcifications. In the market potential for our technologies. First, the T50 test used in a small population of dialysis patients. We estimate that to be a 200 to 400 million euro market. We'll go after that small niche market first, and then expand in earlier stage kidney disease, CKD 4, 3, and then towards the general population. These markets are associated with many more patients and will lead to an over $1 billion opportunity. Go-to-market strategy, we're focusing now on the US market. We are in a process with CMS to obtain reimbursement for the T50 test. We've also established technical diligence with a large CLIA lab with a national coverage to be able to offer the T50 test nationwide. We are also forming a partnership with one of the 2 leaders on the US market for the dialysis care delivery. That partner owns 40% of the dialysis patients, and we would overnight be able to treat all of these patients using our lab in the United States. So upon CMS reimbursement, we have a huge step up in revenues. We go from essentially no revenue to about double-digit million revenues, which will grow over time. Calciscon is now raising 3 million in equity investment, of which 0.8 million is already secured. We will use the funds for the US launch, reimbursement, and the launch activity with our partner, and advance our portfolio of products. The IP for the T50 test is already granted in 23 territories. We're very strong in North America, Western Europe, and the Far East Australia. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Vincent. Great presentation. Masashi, would you like to start with your comment?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Vincent. Really interesting. So is this a new concept that the physicians or the patients or the providers need to you need to educate them on to get adoption?
Correct. Right now, sadly, we do not measure calcification. So we measure cholesterol, blood pressure, smoking history. All of them are, I mean, good thing to measure. But calcification is the reality of cardiovascular care. It's not measured. So now we're going to have to educate these people. That's why we're starting with the niche market of dialysis, which is the one population that has the highest rate of cardiovascular disease in the world. And most of these cardiovascular events are linked to calcification. And that's basically a logical place to start, where education is a lot simpler.
Got it. And then in order to educate them and then get, this to become really the standard of care, what kind of evidence or what do you think you need to do? I know you already have a lot of evidence in place and CMS reimbursement, all that, but sometimes, you need to do more, right?
So what we find is the biggest barrier to usage of the test by the early adopters is reimbursement. So that's really the focus of the work right now. There's a very well-established unmet need around calcification, especially in kidney disease patients. Essentially, the death rate in kidney disease patients has not evolved over decades. The drugs available to treat calcification are not effective because they're not used effectively in absence of a test to measure calcification. So I think that the audience is pretty much ready in the kidney disease area. Expanding outside of kidney disease toward the general population will be a lot more difficult. That's why we basically stage it, and the financials of the company are not based on the general population.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Masashi. Stefan, what do you think? Do you have any question?
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you elaborate a little on your end game? So are you being bought by strategics, or for example, are you building a company for big revenue? And if you are working towards an exit, what's the proof you need? Because you are actually all very far, I think, when you look at the data, but also to your market access strategy.
Yeah, so the end game for us is really to think about improving calcification medicine. And what we think the biggest problem is here is a lack of suitable drugs. We have good drugs for dialysis patients. We don't have good drugs for the rest of the world. So what we see here is a focus right now on creating revenues through the sales of the T50 test. And the dialysis market is an interesting market, easy to reach. We can get double-digit millions with very high gross margins. And that is basically fueling our drug discovery development. And we are now partnering with a drug company having candidates for improving or slowing down calcification. We also have our own product. So we see this kind of a two-stage where we will use the proceeds of the sales of the IVD to go for something a little bit bigger and I think more meaningful for the patient by developing better tools to reduce calcification.
Yeah, thank you for the answer, Vincent. Stefan, do you have any follow-up question, or is it not?
Yeah, so when do you see an exit happening, and who would it be? Who would be a good candidate for an exit, for example? So because you have different models, and you have a marketing, a partnering business model, and a sales business model. So I'm just thinking about how would an end game look like? What would the auction be, and who would be in it? So I think it's my problem, not yours. That I don't.
No, it's a very important question. I mean, like the exit is a necessary step in the course of the startup. Now, so think, for example, the US market. We have now two leading players on the dialysis care delivery. One is Fresenius Medical Care, the other one is DaVita. Both of them have the highly centralized laboratory operation. Each one of them can basically buy the US right to the T50 test, just a US right, because I don't think DaVita will care for anything else out of the United States. We could basically slice the value we've developed by selling the US right to T50 to either DaVita or Fresenius. And then they basically will be able to operate on this 50 million plus revenue stream for the years to come. And they are very interested, I can tell you that. So this is just one way to create a quick exit for, I would say, one slice of the sausage. In Europe, there's a different makeup of dialysis care companies that would be of interest here. Diaverum is a company we're working quite closely with. We're less active in the Far East, but interestingly, Japan and South Korea are two countries having the highest rate of dialysis patients. And these are quite some attractive players in that field as well. So to summarize, I think the idea would be to slice the sausage into different, I would say, sales in different territories, and mostly focus on the dialysis company. I think the IVD companies, like take the Abbott, the Roche, the Siemens, Healthineers, and the like, have established line of equipment. We don't quite fit in them. It's going to be a difficult sale there. So we're really focusing on the dialysis company.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Vincent, for the presentation. And time is up now, actually. Great presentation, Vincent. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next company is Agora Labs. Davide, CEO and founder of the company, with the presentation. Davide, please share your screen as the presentation.
Can you see it? And can you hear me? All right.
Yes.
Thank you for your time
Yes.
today. I'm Davide Zaccagnini. I am the founder of Agora Labs, where we solve the problem of protecting patient privacies so that health data can be activated at a global scale. I am glad to see many physicians today. I used to be one until I realized that the space of medical information was entirely broken. So I left, went to MIT, spent more than 20 years in Boston, did a couple of startups, and then a couple of large corporations before coming back to research, where I met my co-founder, a leading expert in privacy, cryptography, and big data. Together, we implemented the first blockchain solution for protecting healthcare data, which is now in use in more than 20 hospitals throughout Europe, which are using the infrastructure for developing medical AI and doing clinical research. Only recently, we decided that the platform was ready for prime time, and we started commercial operation, engaging with customers really starting a few months ago. And we're already seeing very good traction with the first pilots that we are defining with multiple players in Europe. The problem we are solving is privacy, which is extremely costly to enforce, not only in Europe, but all over the world, including the United States. And yet, for all the money that organizations are spending on protecting privacy, they get sued and fined left and right all over the world, to the point where the real roadblock to develop medical AI, according to important figures, is the legal status of training data. This is because nobody can really define privacy. In the age of machine learning, is not enough to just take out of the database the names and the addresses. Anybody can be effectively re-identify, and that's why the authorities keep enforcing a law that nobody can comply with. So we decided to develop an entirely new solution to this problem, starting with the concept that data should not move around. They should remain wherever they are originally. So we are the first platform which can run, and the only platform which can run privacy-preserving computations on any sorts of data, including mobile phones in the hands of their owners. We use blockchain to let them express who can access their data for how long, and also at what cost, because we strongly believe that the value of data should be shared with all those stakeholders in the ecosystem. The blockchain controls that all the only legitimate allowed computations are taking place, and then triggers this computation, finally protecting the outputs with an advanced cryptography that we have developed that makes it impossible to re-identify anybody in the underlying data sets. We also use semantic integration based on large language models, famous ChatGPT, which solves a really long-standing problem of integrating semantically different data sources. With this solution, we allow life science companies, medical device companies, but also healthcare systems to access real-world data at a fraction of the cost in real time, and therefore de-risking their investments, whether it's on new products or new services that a healthcare system wants to enact. We can create so much efficiency in data transactions compared to the status quo that we actually save a lot of money to those who are seeking data and are ready to pay significant amounts of money. We distribute the value to hospitals, research centers, even to patients who are providing this data. And this pushes our growth because of the incentives that we can put on the table in conjunction with the mathematically proven anonymity of our computation. We can activate multiple sites in a short time frame. While we know that this is the main challenge, our strategy is such that we don't need to activate more than 20 data sites to meet all the possible demand of data users on our platform. We're working through partners both in Europe and in the rest of the world, mostly companies who are already accessing data to do market access studies or health economic studies or clinical studies. Again, not only in Europe, but also in the world. This is really to show that our technology is so lightweight, so scalable, that we can target even secondary and tertiary markets, still generating value out of them because of the extremely low cost and extreme scalability of our infrastructure, including the Italian Federation of Pharmacies, with whom we're working to activate data from more than 1,800 Italian pharmacies to run drug consumption studies. And this leads us to an exit, which will have two potential flavors. One, a EU company that wants to increase efficiencies in their data operations, or even more probably a US platform that needs a GDPR compliant technology built for the GDPR in order to move in the European market and globally. For this, we're asking an investment of 1 million from a 7 million evaluation. Out of these 1,300,000 have been already secured through our investors, and 350 roughly are secured every year by the EU funds that will keep going until 2026 and beyond. Most of these funds will be used to expand our international presence and activating data sites across Europe and the world. And with this, I thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any question.
Thanks so much, David. A great presentation. Yara, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Davide. Whenever we talk to companies within this sort of AI space, we always ask them how are you protecting your data. So we appreciate that you're tapping into this space. I wonder if you can kind of, I suppose, define what you mean in terms of the next phase of development for you in terms of the market studies and the disease studies. How do those two differ, and how are you sort of strategizing that phase?
Sure. So we're actually focusing primarily on the market studies. To give you an example, any drug in every country needs to be renegotiated in terms of price that the healthcare system is paying every 2 years. So this is a recurrent type of studies to which very big tickets in terms of revenues for the pharmaceutical company is attached. The partners that we are working together specifically address this type of studies. They run the health economics, they collect the data, and they provide the pharmas with the resulting study. And then the pharma goes and defends the price of that drug toward the healthcare system. These are easy studies from a data standpoint, are repeated every 2 years, as I said. There is a variety of small companies that need these data, so it's a very low-hanging fruit for us. Mm-hmm. The disease studies are somehow more complex from an information standpoint, but in that sense, our ability to train medical artificial intelligence in a federated fashion, which guarantees much faster access to the underlying data, is actually accelerating our penetration in that stage. So we just discussed with a large pharma this morning a project where they want to create, they want to train models for inhalers. So the pulmonary ventilation model using our infrastructure that trains their AI on distributed data without moving the data centrally, which dramatically saves them time and money.
Brilliant, thank you. And in terms of sort of a revenue structure with these partnerships, is it sort of a SaaS model, or is it sort of a one-off payment and then you cover specific outcomes?
So all these partners are incentivized to bring us to data sites and activate these data sites. So there is an incentive for them in our contractual agreements to introduce us to hospitals, research centers, and open up these sites for us. There is a revenue sharing component too, because once the site is open, because we guarantee anonymity of the data, we can use these underlying data sites indefinitely for any use. This is the main differentiator we have with any other platform who is forced into the paradigm of pseudonymity, which has to be regulated by a specific contract. We are free of that. So our partners also benefit on the long run, sharing revenues with us if they help us opening that account. Did I answer your question?
It is. So to clarify, there is a revenue structure, a shared revenue structure with these partners, or it's an option down the line?
There is a revenue sharing for the site that they brought us into, not in general, only for the hospitals that they brought us.
Understood. That's fine. I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Yara. Dominic, do you have any comment?
Yeah. Hi, David. Thank you for your presentation. I think I've seen this presentation before, or a very similar presentation. And maybe I can start in the direction of where Yara was, because, I work for a bank. So typically, and I speak with a lot of venture capitalists and funds, right? And typically when we see a business model with a lot of enterprise or strategic kind of payers, it typically means what we would call bumpy revenues, and so I think, I am a little bit curious, and I'm glad you brought this up, because I also took the note, what does 6 sites actually mean? And and we saw for example, we just saw the map with Italy. We've seen some other kind of geographies pointed out. And maybe you can just kind of clarify, I guess, those 2 buckets a bit.
Yeah, so I do understand that under normal enterprise solution sales, revenues may be, just related to the specific contract you have with that enterprise. We are, in essence, a marketplace model. I may use that word with some clients, not with all clients. There is still some cultural resistance to the idea of a marketplace for data, but that's what we are. So it's actually a different type of business. We provide incentives to data providers to come on board, activate their data, and receive revenues that we share with data providers, so that it's a long-term relationship. The more data they provide, the more their data become rich and interesting for life sciences, the more they actually earn directly from the data. Of course, as the value of the data increase, our revenue increase. When I talk about data sites, what I mean is it can be one organization with one database. The typical example is a hospital with an electronic medical record, but it can be one institution with multiple databases. So the same hospital can have an electronic medical record, a PACS system, a lab system, and administrative systems. All these are what counts as a site. And when I say that with just 6 sites, we can break even, I'm even kind of exaggerating the number, because the pilot we are defining with the Italian Federation of Pharmacies in itself will cover well more than break even. The market of drug consumption data is very substantial. Now, that is a world type of estimate. We're talking about the Italian and the Greece, where we're working under the same type of use case. It's still a very, very attractive market, only the drug consumption data. So these numbers of our growth is actually, in my view, underestimated. The other side to this story is we will never need hundreds or dozens of clinical sites. With 20, we are going to meet the demand of all the potential studies and projects that people want to execute on the data. This is because 20 different sites with diverse enough data are going to have enough number of patients for any type of statistics to be robust and significant and generalizable, for any type of AI to be trained and validated. So there is an initial bump in securing these sites, but the progress we're making through our partners is actually extremely encouraging. So I have no doubt that we will close the sites in the next year.
Yeah, thanks so much, Davide. Actually, we're out of time. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Labs. On the next presentation, the next company is Mireya. Robert Brennan, CEO of the company, will do the presentation. Robert, feel free to share your screen and go ahead with the presentation.
Yes, let me give the permission. Can you give me the permission for sharing?
Sorry, Miriam. Actually, as I said, the next company is Mireya, and you will be the next.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. Robert, are you there?
Thank you. Can you see me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I'm Robert Brennan. I'm the CEO of Mireya DX. We're a femtech IVF diagnostic firm, which we have developed over the past 8 years and painted it the best test. And the best test is essentially a blastocyst and embryo screen and selection test, which is ultra-fast, non-invasive, and it uses MALDI-TOF, which is a mass spectrometry. Part of the engine of our best test incorporates proprietary AI algorithms to enable the process of identifying viable embryos. The best test over the last 8 years with Professor Ray Oils has been developed using 4,000 retrospective samples, and at this minute has shown positive outcomes of over 70%. So now we're ready to commercialize it, and this is our pitch. So in terms of the problem out there in the market, essentially this is based on the UK alone, but it's generally a global issue. 1 in 6 couples have difficulty conceiving. In the UK alone, there's over 3.5 million. The market in general is $16.8 billion globally, with a compounding growth rate of 9.3%. That's expected to reach 31 billion by the end of this year. There's 1.5 million IVF cycles globally, and in Europe alone, 55% of that takes place. The average success rates for IVF is still relatively low at 27%, and the cost per cycle, excluding any add-ons and the drugs, is still very expensive at over 6,000 sterling. 80% of all patients in the UK do not receive funding from the NHS. So our solution is the best test. So what is the best test? The best test is, as I outlined, is non-invasive. We sample the spent blastocyst medium. We process it through our own special matrix that we have. We put it onto the MALDI-TOF mass spectrometry and run it and analyze the spectra. The data analytics then is run, and then from that, then we issue out a probability of which embryo is the highest ranking of those to be used. So in terms of the timeline of the business, the business goes back over 10 years. In terms of 2019, we presented at Eastfair prior to receiving our patent in 2020. Mireya DX was then incorporated in 2022 as a spin out from the original business that has built the test. And at the minute now, we're just about to go commercialize and bring the funding in. In terms of the business model, we're going to focus essentially firstly in the UK and Irish market and the European market. And in total in the European market, there's over 500,000 cycles. Per cycle, the average harvest embryo is about 3 to 5. So we're looking at about 2.5 million embryos per annum in Europe alone that needs to be analyzed, which is over 337 million size market. Our initial target market is going to be 30,000 cycles or 150,000 embryos, which by 2025, we expect to have 20 million of revenue, which that 20 million will then be converted straight down to EBITDA of about 15. So it's very cost tight model. In terms of our go-to market plan, there's a number of key milestones that have to be met over the next 6 to 12 months, including we have a number of key staffings that we've identified and agreed to take on. Market acceptance studies is a crucial part of this. Our retrospective study has been very, very positive, but to get it into the market, we need to then partner with some clinics, which we already have some verbal agreements with, to take on our machine, whereby we'll give it to them for free. We'll do the testing in comparison to what they were going to implant, and then data that we receive from that will help us then go forward as a really strong market impact thereafter. We expect that to be finished best part of May 24, which is about 7 months from now, 8 months. In terms of the competitors that's out there, the key test that the most fertility clinics recommend is PGTA, which is genetic implementation testing. And the issue with PGTA is that it's invasive. It takes a piece of the cell of the embryo and analyzes whether there's any abnormalities within the embryo. If they come back and state that there is some abnormalities, then 9 times out of 10, those embryos are discarded. And lately, over the past 12 months, there's an awful lot of legal cases coming on site in the US, whereby some patients have not been able to harvest any more embryos, selected the embryos that they felt they kept because even though they were abnormal, and they implanted them, got pregnant, success with no issues. So our main competitor is PGTA. The second competitor, which we haven't highlighted here, is EmbryoScope, which is technically AI, analyzing imagery and taking photographs of the embryo as it's developing over a period, and then they make a selection using the AI predictability. There is research reports out there now that technology, whilst it sounds great, the impact of success rates is only maximum up to 6%, but some people saying it doesn't impact it at all, whereby our predictability is up to 70%. And depending on the range, whether you're below 30 or going up to 40, it goes from 27% increase in terms of your success rates all the way out to double digits. Okay, so in terms of the team, I'm Robert Brennan. I'm ex-finance. I was the youngest stockbroker in Ireland at 18. Followed my tracks over to Columbia, New York, and then got into managing private wealth for the last 10 years and managing private investments in healthcare companies. I set up a COVID testing company and built that up to multi-million revenue. And on the back of that, that's how I got in touch with Professor Hills, and we've developed out this business together. In terms of then the financial projections, as I said, year 2024, so the first 18 months, the first 12 months will be essentially developing, putting in the infrastructure, getting it ready to go to the market. And after the 12 months, then the following 6 months was when revenue will start kicking in. And we expect by year end 2024, 1.2 million of revenue. And by year end 2026, 20 million of revenue, which will then equate back to essentially 50 million of EBITDA. The pricing of this product will be 135 euros per embryo cost to the fertility clinic. And the fertility clinic will give a recommended retail price to them, but they can charge to the end patient whatever price they wish within context. In terms of then use of funds, the funds will be used essentially to develop out our software platform, which is the end user platform for the fertility clinic and the patient, hiring key staff, and then ongoing working capital. And then in terms of the non-invasive, the rest of the market, just the overview of the market is in Europe, it's 3.1 billion and grown, 1.9 billion in China, 4.2 billion in the US, and 1 billion in the rest of the world. So our initial focus, just to go back, I didn't allude to it, but our initial focus will be Ireland and the UK in the first year. And in the UK alone, there's 75,000 cycles per annum. And we'll be looking to achieve 5% growth in year 1, 10% growth in year 2, and 15% in year 3 each time we enter the market. In terms of the testing and who does the testing, test tubes will be supplied to fertility clinics, and they can then carry them to ourselves, which we're setting up Mireya DX Labs as a subsidiary underneath, and the lab will be in Cambridge, and then we have a lab here in Dublin. So initially, what we're looking to do is raise €2.5 million, which will bring us to cash flow break even.
Thank you, Robert. Sorry, I have to interrupt you there. 6 minutes is up. So Stefan, would you like to start with your comment? What do you think about the presentation?
Yeah, thank you very much. A good presentation, optimistic presentation, entrepreneurial presentation. So good presentation. You could say it couldn't go wrong if you look at the slides. And can you tell us about the current market dynamics? For example, are there switching costs, customer lock-ins, and risks that could delay implementation? And how are they identified?
Yes. So the market that we see is going to be a push and pull. So essentially the fertility clinics will want to essentially decrease their cost base, and we can do that for them. And the reason why we can decrease the cost base is because when they're using PGTA, there's a substantial cost of having a skilled embryologist to take a cell of the embryo. Our test is non-invasive. A junior lab scientist can come in and run the test for them, or we can just take a piece of this SBM, the culture media that the embryo is harvesting, and send it up to us. In terms of the patient itself, the patient demand will come from the patient. When the patient becomes aware there's a test in the marketplace that is sufficient in terms of the success rates, that demand will come from there. So in terms of our 2.5 million that our use of funds, we have a lot of about over 500,000 attributed to costs towards PR, marketing, social media, and market acceptance initiative studies. So we're spending a good chunk of that per annum, 500,000 in the first year and 500,000 in the second year, to get us penetrated into that market.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Robert. Thank you, Stefan. Masashi, do you have any question?
Not really, Steven. This question is really good. But I guess one question is this the product that will be, or is already, or will be reimbursed?
It potentially can be, yes, because we haven't put it into the deck. We've been looking to partner with some insurance companies, and as you know, there is a lot of insurance companies offer IVF cycle policies out there, and the quicker the insurance companies have a success rate for their patient, i.e. declined, the more revenue they generate, because they don't have to continue to pay for the cycles. So in time, we will be looking to link up and partner and collaborate with insurance companies. But the key to this test is that Professor Ills is able to identify 35 biomarkers from the sample, and he has painted it. And these biomarkers, nobody knows about what they are, and that's our secret sauce. And we have a full patent global, America, US, Japan, China. So we have, the market is looking at what we're doing, but we own the patent to it.
Got it.
Thank you, Masashi. Dominic or Yara, who wants to jump in?
Yeah, I had a really similar reaction, a really nice pitch, quite polished. And I think the confidence comes across, and I think it's so interesting because everyone knows that IVF is very, very hard, you know? And so I don't know, Robert, I mean, I maybe a bit also esoteric, but what is keeping you up at night? Or, you know, what are the 1 or 2 bumps in the road that you are potentially planning for right now?
The main bump in the road that we see is the uptake within the fertility clinics to take up our test and use our machine. And the reason being is that, and this is the reason why we're not going near America in year 1, 2, and 3, is that PGTA is fully embedded in fertility clinics. The large promoters of PGTA are Cooper Surgical and Illumina, and there are 2 large listed companies. We're a small business. We wouldn't be able to compete with them in the US. However, the market we're going after in Europe is Ireland, the UK, and Germany especially. In Germany, PGTA is not allowed. It's a red flag. They don't allow it. So we'll be seeking to go to that market straight away because that's an open market. Year 4, which we haven't put in the plan, is Japan. In Japan alone, they have 500,000 fertility cycles a year. 500,000. That's nearly the size of the whole of Europe. If we can just penetrate 2 or 3 large fertility clinics in Japan alone, the revenues will just go exponential. So in terms of what we have, we're very confident in the test because Professor Ills, who's on the call, has spent 8 years developing this. He's a gynecologist and his speciality is Malditop mass spectrometry. The market is going towards mass spectrometry because it's highly sensitive and the cost base is very low.
It's brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dominic. Actually, time is almost up, but not a question, but maybe Yara, if you just a comment or small feedback, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robert. I agree with everyone's thoughts. Fantastic presentation. If you may just kind of elaborate on scalability, I suppose, of the platform. It's its own hardware. How do you see it sort of growing across Europe?
Yeah, so
and Robert, maybe if you just explain like within a couple of sentences would be great.
30 seconds. The scalability, Mireya DX Labs UK, Mireya DX Labs in Ireland will look after the testing for, if you look at 30% of all fertility clinics are in London, and we're an hour and a half from London. So the access to that is very quick. The test itself doesn't have to be, in terms of the SBM, doesn't have to be kept at room temperature, so it can be just couriered straight away or posted overnight. in terms of the competition, PGJ can only look after frozen embryos, where we can do fresh and frozen. So in terms of scalability, if large clinics want to put a machine in there, we will put a machine into them and train them up, and that will then let them do it. All the results will always come back to our central server. So we'll still own all the data. It's fully encrypted, so they'll never see our algorithm and how we do it. There's actually 2 algorithms.
Understood. No, thank you. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks so much, Robert. Thank you for presenting this opportunity to
Pleasure.
us.
Thank you very much.
And now we will move to the final pitch. The last company is Mac4. Miriam will be presenting the opportunity, and we will be just say goodbye just after 8 p.m. European time. So stay tuned. Miriam, feel free to share your screen and start the presentation.
Okay, sorry for earlier interrupting. We're so excited to start. Good. So you can see the screen, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Nice, okay. So at Marco, we develop new concepts that rethink care provision for orthopedic assistive devices. And by this, we radically improve the range of opportunities for our target group in terms of access and physical activities. So the people we are focusing on are people either without a hand or people with a lacking or impaired grip function of the hand. And about 70% of our target group does not use a device at all or fully. And we talk about a market with more than 100 people worldwide, which meets our target group profile. So what's the problem in that area? First of all, it's a high cost. Often the people have to bear the costs themselves, and they are quite high, which they cannot often afford. And another aspect is comfort and function, how it feels to wear a device on your arm several hours, and what you can actually do with it in order to have really an added value. So we have a solution which is based on 2 concepts for both target groups that we focus on. And the magic behind that is what we put together is the data-driven approach with which we work, the online remote access which we give, and that we apply 3D printed end products for our user group. So the principle is always the same. Our products are very affordable for end users. So you will see later with our business model that we not only sell B2B2C, but also B2C. The products are always very lightweight, so that they're really comfortable. And we make them very modular, the entire product system, so that you can use them in very different ways. Product concept 1 is a modular forearm prosthesis composed of a custom-made piece where we developed algorithm and different hardware components which serve as accessories. And product concept 2 is a hand ortho prosthesis where we also work with customized and not customized pieces. And this device is for the target group which has a hand or an impaired or partial hand. So the innovation behind our approach is also the customer journey. So our client always gets informed. He measures himself remotely. When it's a business partner, it's done with a scan. When it's a private person, it's done with a photo-based technique, which we developed. Then we can configure online together, or they can do it independently of us, and we deliver the product by mail. So we never see our clients face-to-face. We work with 3 business models. Normally you work in this industry with a B2B2C model, and we go through 3 revenue streams in order to have more flexibility to access markets, because the revenue streams are very different in markets and also the market needs. When we compare Marco with the competition, the clear focus of the current biggest players is clearly on high-tech solutions, and we rather focus on low-tech solutions, but make them smart in order to make them usable for the people, fill the lag which is currently observed in the market, and makes them also very affordable. We look currently in our current funding round, which is a pre-Series A for 800,000. And we will use those funds in order to create more awareness for Marco, because that's very important for our business strategy and to increase sales ramp up in Europe. We started 2021 and we are already on the market with the first product, which is this one here. Here you see one of our power users, very happy users, very good feedback so far. And the second product will come to market end of this year. And here we address a rather big market, and we really hope that now during the end phase of the development that we create many, many more happy users. Our overall goal is that we would love to build up a purpose-driven, profitable brand with social impact. And I wanted to give you a short pitch, so therefore, thank you for your attention.
Thanks so much, Miriam. Great presentation. Yara, do you have any question or comments on the presentation?
Thank you for your presentation, Miriam, and what a fantastic initiative. It's great to see. It's great to see you do this. I suppose I want to ask logistics. Given that I suppose every prosthetic is unique to the user, how do you manage that as you grow the company?
Yeah, you mean logistics in the term of supply chain, in terms of scalability?
I suppose both. Supply chain largely is where I was kind of focusing, but I suppose as you scale as well.
Yeah, so for example, we are currently acting in the markets Switzerland and Germany, but also have already sales outside these two markets. And we produce on behalf of the Marco AG in Switzerland, and we are ready by end of Q3 to produce as well on behalf of our second company in Germany, Marco GmbH. And so we send out the products from the German facility within Europe and from the Swiss facility inside Switzerland and outside Europe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yara. I don't know, Dominic, do you have any question or comment?
This is, I mean, I think it's such a useful approach, and I'm just curious if you can share any kind of early client feedback that maybe you have. I'm also curious, how would you, I worked in rehab a very long time ago, the National Rehab Hospital in DC, and I'm curious how you're thinking about maybe working with groups like that.
Mm-hmm. So the feedback which we received so far, we sell both. We sell directly to the end users, which we never see in person. We always make everything remote. The concept works very nicely. So we really only receive 3 pictures of the arm, and then we provide a customized prosthesis. The kids like this one here, also the adults are very happy. So we don't have any issues with pressure marks, topics, or other things so far. The prototypes, when it's about this first product, which you see on that picture, they are happy. They prefer definitely the, how do you say that, the terminal devices, which you can see here in blue and red. And some tend to use the customized piece by themselves. Sometimes they prefer to use it from us. So here we have like a question of that the market is partial in a transition of becoming more open-minded for 3D printed, remotely created custom-made pieces. So that's quite interesting to observe. And for the second product, the hand also prosthesis, there the feedback is very straightforward. They've never seen such a modular approach for a product that can serve so many different indications at the same time. So because indications are amputation, dysmelia, you have neuromuscular deficits, you have stroke impacts on the hand sensitivity. So there are many different indications which are put together in the same group of end users with this product. Your second question was about the rehab centers. So we are, with the second product, we are approaching more now the ergotherapists and different other departments of hospitals. And here we are sure that here for this, we will need a distributor, a partner to approach hospitals, because it's a pretty different sales compared to the direct sales, which we currently make. And we are very positive about that.
Thank you. And maybe one follow-up. And so I'm trying to picture what, for lack of better words, I'm sure there's a better phrase for this, but the market for young amputees looks like. And for whatever reason, I have images outside of Europe. So do you have a strategy for Africa, for example, or for countries in Africa, or in other countries where maybe these are very large issues or larger outside of Europe issues?
So when it comes to the first product, here we talk about amputations, for example. When it comes to countries like Africa, we are frequently looking into smaller projects. Here we still see a little bit of limitation of the printing quality, which we need to achieve with SLS printing. For the second product, it's much easier because here we have different requirements for the specifications. When it's rather in the directions, for example, of the US, we would go with our third business model, which is a licensing model, because it's such a big market. There you need a totally different setup. So both is interesting, and we get frequently approached by different countries which are currently not in our focus. And it's a matter of really observing, analyzing, and then taking the right decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Stefan, any comments?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very cuddly case. You can see a lot of competition in this area, and many startups that simply measure and print 3D, for example. We see a lot in Holland. To be successful, you have to serve a large region with recurring revenues, and you have a B2B or a B2C and then B2B2C strategy in different regions, and it looks very complex for a young company, and mostly you see some focus in the beginning. What do you have to do to obtain a large market share? In which countries is the climate such that you can start quickly and grow? And what customer relations you need to protect your position over there?
Yeah, that's a complex question. Thank you.
Sorry.
Very full information. Yeah, let me try to answer it quickly. So yes, it's rather complex what we do. We have two product systems. We have three models. We address with the first product a tiny market, with the second a larger market. We knew that from the beginning, and therefore we go so versatile into the market. So to give an example, for Switzerland, we worked from the very beginning directly with the government together, because they wanted to see something like what we do in the market to give to respond to the high costs which they have in the markets. So we can directly charge to the insurance in Switzerland, and Switzerland becomes more and more a B2C market for us, with the payer in the background. Germany, we see that the CPOs, the projects are very positive about the product. Here we try not to push B2C too much, and are now in discussion and negotiation with the distributor for the market. So we first investigated the market ourselves for a couple of months to better understand, is it really necessary to go with a distributor? And we'll then hopefully sign in 3 months a contract. When it comes to the other markets, to really then also, like you asked, to increase the market share, in parallel, what's very important is the online marketing strategy, because what we see is that there are so many non-users when it comes to this first product out there, that you need to create pull effects from the user group and not from the CPO. So therefore, only going by distributors is not the solution to grow the market. And what we frequently see, that people find us because they search crazy in the internet for, I would like to kayak, I would like to do this or that. And we have a very good SEO strategy implemented. You can find us very easily online, and we pay nothing in ads. So that's a very diverse strategy which we run, and we hope that this will work out. Currently, it works nicely.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefan. Masashi, do you have any comments as well?
No, a lot of questions been asked and answered. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks so much, Masashi. Actually, also, we are out of time right now. Thank you, Miriam, for the presentation. Do you have any final words? Just a couple sentences, maybe. Miriam.
Again, please.
Do you have any final words? If you have, please.
No, I'm just happy that still some people are in the call.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, but don't worry about it. We will distribute the recording and promote all the companies to all the people. So don't worry about it. Yeah, then we can wrap up here. Thanks so much for everyone joining with us until the end. Thank you all the presenters, Implandata, BOYDSense, EndoShunt Medical, Smylor, Calciscon, Agora Labs, Mireya, Mac4, and a special thank for all the judges, Masashi Kiyomune, Yara Lenazi, Dominic Kennerson, and Stefan Halsbergen. Thank you, everyone. This was our last Health Tech Investment Conference in the summer session. The next edition will be held either like September or in October. We announced that within a month. Yeah, thanks so much. To give a warm goodbye. Maybe you can open your microphone and say goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.